Welcome to EnglishLab Channel. Tune in to natural fluency. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of the EnglishLab Channel. I'm Chris, and I am absolutely thrilled to be starting this journey with you all. And of course, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Michelle. Michelle, how are you feeling about our big launch today?
Oh, Chris, I'm over the moon. I'm so excited. For those listening, over the moon just means I am incredibly happy. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. We've spent so much time preparing the English Lab channel to be the perfect resource for students who want to bridge the gap between textbook English and real-world English.
Exactly. We want to move away from those dry, boring dialogues you find in old books. You know the ones. Hello, how are you? I am fine, thank you. Nobody actually talks like that in real life.
Right? If someone said that to me at a party, I'd think they were a robot. And that's actually the perfect segue into our topic for today. We are going to talk about the art of introductions, how to introduce yourself and how to introduce others in a way that feels natural, whether you're at a job interview or meeting your partner's parents for the first time.
It sounds simple, but it's actually where most people stumble. They stumble, meaning they make a mistake or lose their confidence. It's the first hurdle of any conversation. I actually have a funny story about this, Michelle. A few years ago, I was starting a new job at a tech company. It was my first day, and I was so nervous that when the CEO walked up to me and said, "Hi, I'm David," I responded with, "Nice to meet you, Chris." I told him my own name instead of saying, "Nice to meet you, David."
No way! Did you really say your own name back to him?
I did. I was so stuck in my own head rehearsing my introduction that I forgot how to listen. He just laughed and said, "Well, at least you won't forget your own name." But that taught me that being stuck in your own head, which means being too focused on your own thoughts, can really ruin a first impression.
That's so true, being stuck in your own head. You're so worried about the grammar that you forget the social connection. So let's start with the basics of introducing yourself in a casual, informal setting. Most people know, "Hi, I'm Michelle," but there are better ways to break the ice. To break the ice means to start a conversation in a social setting where people might feel a bit shy.
Break the ice. I love that idiom. It's like the conversation is a frozen lake and you need to crack it to get things moving. In an informal setting, like a house party or a casual meetup, I usually suggest starting with a tag-on question. For example, instead of just saying your name, you say, "Hi, I'm Chris. I'm a friend of Sarah's. How do you know her?"
That's a great tag-on. You're giving the other person a hook to keep the conversation going. If you just say your name, the conversation might fizzle out. To fizzle out means to slowly lose energy and stop. We want to avoid that. My brother is actually the king of informal introductions. He doesn't even start with his name sometimes. He'll walk up to someone at a barbecue and say, "Hey, I couldn't help but notice you're wearing a Lakers jersey. Are you a big fan?" And then after a minute of talking, he'll say, "Oh, by the way, I'm Mark."
That's very brave, but it works because it feels organic. It's an organic introduction, meaning it happens naturally without a forced structure. But Michelle, what happens when the situation changes? What if we move from the backyard barbecue to the office? Introductions at work are a whole different ballgame.
A different ballgame. That's a great phrase. It means a completely different situation or a different level of difficulty. In a professional setting, you can't really walk up to the boss and say, "Hey, I like your tie. I'm Michelle." You need to be a bit more polished.
Polished, exactly. You want to look and sound professional. In a business context, your introduction usually needs three things: your name, your role, and a brief value statement. For example, "Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the new senior editor, and I'll be handling the digital content strategy."
And don't forget the handshake language. Even if you aren't physically shaking hands, you use phrases like, "It's a pleasure to meet you," or "I've been looking forward to meeting you." I remember a coworker of mine, Sarah, who was very shy. She used to practice her elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is a very short 30-second summary of who you are and what you do. She would practice it in the mirror every morning before a big conference.
An elevator pitch. It's called that because it should be short enough to deliver during an elevator ride. Let's repeat that. Elevator pitch. It's a concise summary. Sarah was smart to do that. It builds muscle memory.
Exactly. Muscle memory for your tongue. But speaking of work, what about when you have to introduce other people? That's where it gets tricky. There's an old rule in business etiquette. You should always introduce the lower-ranking person to the higher-ranking person.
Oh, that's a classic rule of thumb. A rule of thumb is a general principle or a broadly accurate guide. So you would say, Mr. CEO, I'd like to introduce you to our new intern, Leo. You are showing respect to the person with more seniority.
Exactly. Mr. CEO, I'd like to introduce you to. It's a very safe, formal structure. But Grace, let's pivot a bit. Let's talk about something much more nerve-wracking, introducing a romantic partner to your family.
Oh boy, that is the ultimate test. I remember the first time I brought my now wife to meet my parents. My dad is a very traditional guy, and I was terrified I would mess up the introduction. I wanted it to be seamless. Seamless means smooth, without any obvious gaps or problems.
Seamless, like a piece of clothing with no visible seams. So how did you handle it? Did you go formal or informal?
I went for a hybrid approach. I said, Mom, Dad, this is Maria. Maria, these are my parents, Robert and Susan. I kept it simple but respectful. The key there is the connection point. I followed up with, Maria actually grew up in the same town you did, Dad. Suddenly, they had something to talk about.
That is a pro tip. Always provide a connection point. It's like giving them a map so they don't get lost in the conversation. My best friend actually introduced her new boyfriend to our group of friends, and she did something really clever. She gave us a heads up before they arrived. A heads up is a warning or a piece of information given in advance.
A heads up. Let's repeat that for our listeners. Heads up. It's a bit of advanced information. What did she tell you?
She told us, hey, he's a bit shy, but he loves talking about 80s movies. So when they arrived, the introduction was easy. We said, hi, we've heard so much about you. Is it true you're a big fan of Back to the Future? He lit up immediately. It made the whole introduction feel warm.
That's a game changer. A game changer is something that significantly changes the way a situation develops. Giving a heads up is definitely a game changer for social anxiety. Now, what about the opposite? What about when you are in a very formal setting, like a gala or a wedding, and you have to introduce yourself to someone you don't know at all, but who looks very important?
Ah, the cold intro. A cold intro is when you approach someone with zero prior connection. In those cases, I think less is more. You don't want to overstay your welcome. To overstay your welcome means to stay longer than people want you there.
Overstay your welcome. That's a fear many English learners have. They worry that if they start talking, they won't know how to stop. In a formal cold intro, I like to use the phrase, excuse me, I don't believe we've met. I'm Chris. It's polite, it's classic, and it gives the other person an easy way to respond.
I don't believe we've met. That is such a classy way to put it. It sounds very sophisticated, very C1 level. Another phrase I love for those formal moments is, may I introduce myself? It's a bit old-fashioned, but in the right setting, it shows a lot of decorum. Decorum means behavior that is controlled, calm, and polite.
Decorum. That's a high-level vocabulary word. D-E-C-O-R-U-M. It refers to proper behavior. Speaking of decorum, we should talk about titles. This is a big one for students. When do you use Mr., Mrs., Doctor, or just a first name?
Oh, this is a minefield. A minefield is a situation with many hidden dangers. My rule is always start more formal than you think you need to. If you call someone Mr. Smith and he says, oh, please call me Bob, you've won. You showed respect and he gave you permission to be casual. But if you call him Bob and he wanted to be Mr. Smith, you've started on the wrong foot.
Starting on the wrong foot. That means to begin a relationship or a task badly. I once started on the wrong foot with a professor. I called him by his first name because I saw other students doing it, but it turns out they were his PhD students and had known him for years. He gave me a very cold shoulder for the rest of the semester.
The cold shoulder. That means he was unfriendly or ignored you. Poor Chris. You really learned the hard way, didn't you?
I really did. But that's why we're here at the English Lab Channel, so our listeners don't have to make those same mistakes. So, to recap our first major point, when in doubt, use a title until you are invited to use a first name. It's the safest bet. A safe bet is an option that is likely to be successful and involves little risk.
A safe bet, exactly. Now, let's move on to something that happens a lot in our modern world, the digital introduction. How do you introduce yourself or someone else via email or LinkedIn?
Oh, that's so relevant. I get intro emails almost every day. The biggest mistake people make is being too vague. Vague means not clear or not specific. If you send an email saying, "Hi, I want to talk to you," I'm probably going to ignore it.
Definitely. You need a clear-cut reason. Clear-cut means easy to see or understand. If I'm introducing two people via email, let's call it a double opt-in intro. I always explain why they should meet. Chris, I'm introducing you to Michelle because she is an expert in podcasting, and I think you two could collaborate.
That's perfect. Collaborate to work together. And for our listeners, notice the structure. I'm introducing you to name, because, reason. It's simple, it's effective, and it saves everyone time. My friend David is a recruiter, and he says he cringes, which means to feel embarrassed or awkward, when people send him LinkedIn requests with no message at all.
Oh, I cringe too. It feels like a stranger walking up to you on the street, staring at you and saying nothing. You have to reach out with a purpose. To reach out simply means to try to communicate with someone.
Reach out. It's a very common phrasal verb in business. I'm reaching out to introduce myself. It sounds much more proactive than just I am writing to you.
Proactive. I like that word. It means taking action to make something happen rather than waiting for it to happen. Now, Chris, we've talked about work, family, and digital intros. What about the group introduction? You know, when you walk into a room and there are 10 people you don't know?
That is my nightmare scenario. My strategy for group intros is to find the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper is the person who seems to be the center of the group or the one who invited you. I go to them first, and then I ask them to circulate me. To circulate means to move around and talk to different people.
Circulate. That's a very socialite word. If you don't have a gatekeeper, my advice is to look for open groups. If 3 people are standing in a closed circle, don't interrupt. But if they are standing in a U-shape, there's a gap for you to enter. You can just walk up and say, "Mind if I join you? I'm Michelle."
That's a gold nugget of advice right there. A gold nugget is a small but very valuable piece of information. Look for the U-shape. I'm going to remember that one.
Please do. It'll save you a lot of awkward silences. An awkward silence is that uncomfortable moment when nobody knows what to say. We've all been there.
We certainly have. You know, Michelle, all these different types of introductions really boil down to one thing: empathy. You have to think about how the other person feels. Are they busy? Are they nervous? Are they looking for a connection?
Exactly. Boil down to. That's another great phrasal verb. It means to be the main or most important part of something. Everything boils down to empathy. If you focus on making the other person feel comfortable, your introduction will always be successful, even if your grammar isn't 100% perfect.
That is such a powerful point to end on. It boils down to empathy. Let's repeat that one more time for our friends at home. Boil down to. It's the essence of the matter.
Well, Chris, I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on today. To chew on something means to think about it carefully for a while.
Chew on, like a piece of steak. We've covered informal intros, the elevator pitch for work, introducing partners to family, the cold intro, digital networking, and the U-shaped strategy for groups.
It's been a packed first episode. I'm so glad we started with this. Before we go, I want to remind everyone that practice makes perfect. Don't just listen to this, try it. Next time you're at the grocery store or a coffee shop, try a simple informal introduction.
Absolutely. Even a, "Hi, I don't think we've met, I'm Name," to a neighbor can make a big difference.
Well said. Thank you all for tuning in to the very first episode of the EnglishLab Channel. We have so much more in store for you. In store means planned or destined to happen.
We have a lot in store, from deep dives into movie slang to mastering the art of small talk.
Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear your intro horror stories. Have you ever said your own name back to a CEO like Chris did?
Please tell me I'm not the only one. Until next time, I'm Chris.
And I'm Michelle.
Keep practicing, keep connecting, and keep learning.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Thanks for tuning in. Keep practicing, keep connecting, and don't let your fluency fade to static. Leave us a comment with your stories, hit that subscribe button to join our community, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. See you in the next broadcast.